TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to this week's TellyCast. On this week's show, journalist, TV presenter and producer Richard Hammond talks Top Gear, the Grand Tour and his production company, Chimp Productions. Ollie Davies from Samsung talks us through their AVOD channel, Samsung TV Plus. And in Commissioner's Corner this week, Sky One's Shirley Jones. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast. This week's show is sponsored by Insight TV, who passionately create and share content for the experienced generation. Channel provider, content producer, distributor and format seller, Insight TV delivers real-world stories about the adventures, cultural trends and social causes that resonate with today's millennial and Gen Z audiences. Based upon and inspired by social media trends and influencers, Insight TV operates and distributes a flagship lifestyle channel in vivid 4K UHD HDR quality to 315 million homes in 46 countries via linear cable platforms, digital smart TVs, OTT services and via watchinsight.tv. It also distributes a mobile-first short-form channel in Short, action sports channel in Trouble, science and tech channel in Wonder and a nature and wildlife channel in Wild, a co-venture with Off the Fence, to fast channels and mobile services around the world. Insight TV partners with global brands and broadcasters such as Red Bull Media House, G2 Esports, Vice Media and BT Sports to create factual series like Epic Exploring, I Am Invincible and Ultimate Goal. To find out how to do great things together with Insight TV, visit insight.tv or get in touch with the team at marketing@insight.tv. So my first guest on this week's show is journalist, TV presenter and TV producer Richard Hammond. Hi Richard, how are you doing?
I like the intro. It makes me sound interesting now. I've got all those things rather than just that little bloke off the car show that used to be.
How's lockdown treating you?
Well, it's not fun. From a work point of view, it's kind of limiting, as it is for all of us. So, yeah, there's good days and there's bad days, aren't there? I have just spent 25 years on the road. So it is quite a surprise, having lived out of a suitcase for 25 years, to be in this. I haven't been in the same place for a year, forever.
Yeah.
So that's quite a change.
It's enforced, though. I mean, does that make it more difficult?
No, it actually makes it an awful lot easier because you think, well, I've just got to make the best of this, haven't I? Plus, I mean, I live out here in the country, which is great. But there are trees that blossom here that I had never seen in blossom until last year, the first lockdown, when they came. Oh, look, it's all covered in pink. Look at that. I didn't know it did that. So, yeah, that's been a bit of a joy, really.
How long do you usually spend away from home then, out of a regular year?
Oh, tens and tens and tens of weeks. Yeah, because making all the shows I make seem to involve, whether it's Top Gear latterly or Grand Tour more recently, big for Discovery last year. I began last year with 7 weeks away on a deserted island off Panama, making The Great Escapist for Amazon. And prior to that, all the things I've done, Engineering Connections, I mean, Miracles of Nature, all of those shows involve getting on an airplane and going somewhere else.
I'd love to talk to you about your career. TellyCast is all about the business of TV and the people who work in it. So you've been a TV presenter for over 20 years now. How did you get your first presenter job?
Well, I've been a broadcaster for 33 years. I started at BBC Radio York 1988, came straight out of art college, went straight into radio, which tells you how good I was. Actually wanted to be a photographer as well, so I really completely missed it. And that gave me a grounding, yes, in presentation, which I loved. I loved broadcasting, and live radio still is just so exciting as a presenter. But also production, because, of course, there wasn't a lot of budget in local radio in 1988. So if you were making a 4-hour show, you had to find 4 hours worth of material. And when the BBC kindly said, I know, let's go all speech. It was 75-25 when I started. They then said, no, let's go all speech. So at that point, 4 hours meant you had to fill 4 hours. And there was no resources. You had to have it all jacked up, set up, organised, sit down, begin the show. if it was all speech, you'd have somebody the other side of the glass to make the calls, but you'd have had to set it up. So it gave me a feel for the business of keeping the needles moving.
Yeah. And the production, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the move to TV. I mean, the first thing I ever hosted was Children in Need, the local opt-in out of Blackpool in about 90, very early 90s, 1, 2. But then I was basically starving to death. I'd tried everything. I always dreamed of having my own production company is what I wanted to do, but it's not easy. Little lad from the north. And then eventually I bailed out of radio entirely because I was hungry. But I thought, if I get a job at in one of the car manufacturers in their press office, I'll get to know the editors of all the TV shows about cars, and cars were my big passion. Maybe something could happen. So I did. I applied for and eventually got a job. Took that up with Renault UK, based in Denham, working in the press office. I was the worst press officer in. That's another interview. I was bad at that. But I did. I got to know a guy called Pete Baker at Granada Men and Motors, very early digital channel. And it was sort of cars up to about 9 o'clock and then topless darts after that. He did the car stuff. And he said to me, well, I can't guarantee it, but you'll maybe get a day a week, maybe. I did an audition for him when I did a review of my own company car, which is a Renault Laguna. And so, all right, well, I'll do it. So I bailed, gave up my only ever proper job, my only ever salary in 33 years of work, and went back into media and started there. And stuck with that for 7, 8 years. And by the end of that, I was doing quite a lot with ITV, a lot of live stuff, non-motoring shows. And then eventually the Top Gear audition came along and on you go.
And that was 2002, you joined the Top Gear team.
Yes, when we started the new version, yeah.
That was clearly a life-changing event.
Yeah, although we didn't know. I mean, to be fair, like anybody else, I mean, we've all started shows. And Top Gear had been off the air for a long time. And we thought, well, I honestly thought it's great. It's a national show, brilliant, and maybe I'll get a couple of seasons out of it and then move on to something else. I didn't think I'd do it for 20 years. We got carried away.
How did you get on initially with Jeremy Clarkson and James May?
James May wasn't there initially for the first season. A guy called Jason Dorr, from a presenting point of view. It was us three, and it was I went for the audition. I had to do a sort of car review on a car that they just gave me. So I had to talk around it, piece to camera. Well, that wasn't difficult. Say words, face that thing. I had to do a little bit of sort of imaginary news type bit with Jeremy for a bit of banter. And that was sort of it for the audition. I do remember driving home thinking, what an amazing bunch of folk. I mean, I met Andy Willman, who's the exec, and really the biggest part of it, if we're honest. The one of I always think of it as the four people really at the center of it, and he's the one we couldn't do it without. We could do it without me, do it without James at a push, even do it without Jeremy, but you couldn't do it without Willman. And I just thought, well, he's amazing. And Richard Porter, actually, scriptwriter forever, he was there. And I remember driving home thinking, well, I'm not going to get it, obviously, but oh God, what an amazing team, what an amazing show they're going to make. So I was very surprised and quite pleased when the phone rang and they gave me the job.
Just looking at those list of TV shows, that some of which you mentioned, but the shows that you've presented outside of Top Gear and the Grand Tour, those include Brainiac Science Abuse, The 5 O'Clock Show, Petrol Heads, Engineering Connections, Invisible Worlds, Crash Course, as well as Total Wipeout, Planet Earth Live, and of course your new series on Amazon Prime, The Great Escapists.
And big for Discovery. Yeah. It's been busy. I mean, I've been doing stuff, but you've got to keep busy, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, science, engineering and cars clearly at the centre of what you do. But are there any other areas of TV that you're keen to tackle?
As a producer and with my fledgling little production company, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love it as a presenter. I love science and engineering because I'm an old school presenter, and I'm unashamedly so. I wouldn't give myself a job now, but I kind of am, in the sense that I'm not a personality-led presenter. I've no desire to go on screen and say, hey, look how much I know about this, or look how funny I can be about this. That's not my role. My role is to say, look, isn't this amazing? And if I tell you this about it, it's even more amazing. I'm one of the rack of tools, along with director, sound, camera, editor, everything else that goes into making a show. and I want to present the content to you, not my take on it. So I am quite old-fashioned in that way as a presenter. And I love engineering as a subject and physics. I mean, I did Blast Lab. There was a sort of kids pop science show, and I loved doing it because I like saying about a subject that, look, you don't have to be a scientist to understand and appreciate this, especially right now. Science and engineering are literally saving the world. So we need more scientists and engineers, but you don't have to be one to appreciate and understand it and celebrate it. It's almost giving people the right to say, look, we did a show called Miracles of Nature, won the Jackson Hole, with a guy called Graham Booth, fabulous bloke, worked with him a lot. And that was about biomimetics, effectively. And some of it's pretty heavy, but it kind of isn't when you look into it. If you've got a human brain, you can understand it. I'm also a big believer when it comes to subject areas. The divisions between them, they're an invention. They were invented around about the time education was proliferating and intensifying, and we needed to find ways of being able to examine how people were doing. And the logical way to do that is to break it into subjects. But that's not how the world actually works. If you think of the process of digestion, it's not purely a chemistry. You can't just say that's only chemistry. Physics isn't allowed in this, because there is science is far broader, as is music, art. I mean, Da Vinci would rather give the lie to the idea that you can only do one thing, wouldn't he? Because you can do anything: science, art, language. It's all human stuff, isn't it? And I'm a big fan, and I think it's a big thing that TV can do really effectively, is just say, hey, look at this, isn't it amazing? And if I put it into context for you, isn't it even more amazing? And yeah, of course we can understand it.
Before we move on to Top Gear and the Grand Tour and Chimp Productions, your business, I've just got to ask you about Evel Knievel.
Well, that was fun.
You got to meet Evel Knievel and make a show. What was that like?
It was the last show featuring him, actually, as far as I know. He died very shortly after. It was amazing. And a guy called Nigel Simpkiss, who was a long-time director on Top Gear, I asked him to direct it with me. And I remember he came round to my little London flat, and I was hopping up and down, really excited. Oh, Nigel, this is such an opportunity. We've got incredible access to the man. And let's not forget, this was one of the world's first global brands centered on one person. It's the most incredible story. We've got amazing access. I want to make the definitive, the most authoritative documentary on the man that'll ever have been made. And he nodded and thought for a bit and said, I'd quite like to make the worst. So he absolutely burst my bubble. That little bit of pomposity in me, he saw straight through the brummie and thought, hang on a minute. And he was completely right. And because of that, we ended up with my favourite sequence in that film. He was proving ever more elusive as filming went on. And, when you're making something, you've got access. And it goes one of two ways. Either you get to whatever it is, and I've made a lot of shows based around big structures or what have you, access-based programming. You get there, and quite often, 99% of the time, you actually get more access than was discussed. They let you go further because you've got people on the ground and they're excited. And it doesn't matter what the PR and the bosses said a year ago when you were setting it up. They want to show you how they're going to blow up this wall in this mine or make this bridge stand up. They're really excited. Or it goes the other way and the access starts to get away from you. And that's what sort of happened here. Evel Knievel was very unwell by then anyway. And he'd had a number of accidents in his life. He was slowly retreating from us. And so my favourite scene was chasing him. We had a high-speed chase across a golf course in a golf buggy, with him in a golf buggy. This was to get an interview with a man, racing after. It was the best bit of the show for me. It was just fabulous. Rather than, I'm a big, just in purely programming terms, I love bursting that bubble, that sort of faux reverence, that pomposity. I love, if the stuff you've got to make a program about is interesting and powerful and it will chime with people, then it will. You don't need to be, speaking in that voice, this is it. Because you know what? Just get on with it, deliver the facts. So I really enjoyed that we could do that with it, have a different approach. And largely thanks to Nigel for that.
I haven't seen it, so but I desperately want to. So I'm going to find out where I can access that. And I'll put a link in the episode description. If I find it, I'd love to sort of have a little feature on that on the episode. But coming back to Top Gear, you worked through Top Gear for a number of years. At its peak, 6 million viewers on BBC Two, global audience of 350 million in 214 countries, earning £50 million a year for BBC Worldwide, when £50 million a year was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the detail of Jeremy Clarkson's sacking. That's obviously been gone over many, many times.
I mean, only note that it wasn't a sacking; it was a not renewing a contract.
Right.
It is different. I mean, it is a subtle difference, and I think it was seen as that. But yes, let's not rake it over because it gets boring.
There had been a number of press incidents leading up to that, and it was. Do you think it was only a matter of time until you'd finally fall out with the BBC?
No, the BBC were very accommodating. They didn't interfere. They were very good at thinking, well, there's a little unit here that makes this show, and it comes out of them, so let's leave them to it. It depends where you work in the industry, but if you're a program maker, and I'm very much at the coalface, I'm not trying to big it up. Ooh, it's a tough job. It's not. It's a brilliant job. I love it. That's why I've done it for decades. But I belong on the coalface, as did those around me now and when we were making Top Gear. So they were very good at thinking, well, we'll just let them go run loose in the wild and do what they do.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was inevitable. I don't know. I'm listen, I don't want to get drawn into raking over something that's happened.
A big part of Top Gear was the live shows as well. These like almost live concert experiences. Do you miss those?
They were amazing. They were incredible fun. I was talking to Chris Hughes, actually, the guy at Brand Events, the company that, because they were a commercial venture together with BBC Worldwide. So it's sort of separate from BBC as we knew it from our office in White City, but it was more World City and the filthy money grubbing side of it, which meant it was great because we could go berserk. So it was really exciting. It was fabulous fun and a huge privilege to walk out on stage. We were standing waiting to go on. We played the National Stadium in Poland, in Warsaw. There's 52 or 62,000 people there. And we were backstage waiting to go on to start this show. And it was us stunt driving and being ridiculous, doing the show, but live. Yeah. And I remember saying to the other two, lads, have any three guys with less talent ever gone out in front of more people? No. So it was an incredible privilege and an absolute joy to get to do. I'm a very, very lucky boy for that, to get to do the sort of rock and roll tours, to play the Coca-Cola Dome, to play, huge stadia across the world. Australia, South Africa, Hong Kong, Sydney. It was ridiculous.
It was like a band, though, wasn't it? I mean, it was almost like, it's like Metallica going on tour with these stunts and... Yeah,
we'd sometimes follow the same bands round as well. You'd go and there'd be a band that had just been playing and their posters would be coming down and ours would be going up. It was an incredible experience and one of those amazing surprises that this industry can throw at us all, that you realise, wait a minute. I mean, it again, depends where you work in the business, but assuming you manage to get out of the office occasionally and see what's going on at the coalface, you'll know that feeling when you go away on holiday yourself as like a real person and you look at the big tower or the incredible underwater glass tunnel or the big crane and you think, oh, I want to go up there. And then you realize, oh, no, I can't. But actually in our working lives, because of what we do, we get access to some incredible places. And last year Chimp delivered big to Discovery and, the world's biggest freight ship, finding yourself actually clamoring about in the crankcase of it, which I was briefly. I mean, you don't normally get to do that. Standing on the tallest dock cranes in the world, standing on the tallest, thinnest dam, going inside and underneath. All of these things that you don't normally get to do, but we do because we don't work. We're in TV.
Yeah. Moving on with the Grand Tour then. Massive story in world TV when you signed with Amazon. Massive shift for them as well. Gave you so much more freedom.
We can't tell them. I mean, they gave us a lot of freedom. Amazon were very clever. For a start, we were looking around and certainly I was casting around early on thinking, right, we need to find a home where we are worth more than the sum of our parts. Hideous thought, though, that is. And therefore, it needs to be somewhere where our reach into territories, Australia, Germany, weirdly, South Africa, is of value. And Amazon at that time were gearing up. Prime Video was moving out into territories. They wanted a calling card in all of those territories, which is why we were valued to them, because we could put them quickly in those areas. But they had the sense from day one to say, okay, these guys have got something works. And again, I always include Wilman up front, centre first. Together, they make something, and clearly it resonates because it's got a big audience. So why would we interfere? So they were very, very good and have maintained that ever since. They simply don't interfere. Because why would you? It'd be like spending a lot of, I'm going to make a car analogy, punch me if you need to. But it would be like spending a lot of money on a very expensive, finely tuned car and then fiddling about with it yourself. Why?
Yeah.
They know more. This is when people buy sports motorcycles and try and set the suspension up themselves and ruin it and take it back to be put back to standard because you know what? They know more about it. And Amazon had the sense to realize we knew more about making our show than they did, so leave us to it. As long as we don't, broach the bounds of decency and legality.
I mean, not having the BBC there, did it remove something to rub up against a little bit?
No, because we put Amazon in the same role. It doesn't. I think it was something that was discussed by us, but no. Again, that's a card you can play very easily. We don't do it as much, and I don't think that's because we feel there isn't something to push against. It doesn't feel like that's the right way to go editorially anymore. If we do it less than we did at the BBC, there's still a fine old tradition of knocking the BBC when you're making a show for the BBC. If you're not biting the hand that feeds you, you're doing it wrong. Now, that goes back to the 50s and 60s, really, 60s, 70s in terms of programming. But as a gag, that was the gag. We don't have any money. So, and they're telling us we can't do this. That didn't feel so much like the right thing to do with a big SVOD when, everybody knows Amazon are not shy of money. So we can't say, oh, we've had to do this the cheap way, and oh no, they won't let us do that. It had to be more celebratory. Okay, let's dial it up and let's make it big.
Yeah.
When you're casting around and developing a show and fitting it to a broadcast, so it goes through, you might find 3 or 4 broadcasters for whom it fits, editorially and in terms of timing, and in the days of the being schedule, in the schedule even, fine. But then you will retune it specifically for them, for their voice, for what feels right to land it there. And I think with SVODs at the moment still, it doesn't feel right to me to be playing that slightly, straw on the floor note. It's kind of not what we want. If you turn on Amazon, Netflix, you want money on screen. And if you don't deliver it, it doesn't sit right, really, because the audience, I don't think anybody thinks it through that much. But I think inside they are crossing their arms and thinking, really? Not got much money to do it properly? Yeah, you have. Yeah. Spend it. Yeah. Show it to me.
I mean, you could certainly see that. I mean, I was watching the final episode of season 3 where you announced to the audience there that was going to be the format change. And to your point about money on screen, some amazing cinematography there. It was just stunning, actually. That big format change, why was that?
I think it's incredibly time-consuming. It was all of our entire lives because fulfilling 10 shows, how many shows a year, as they got bigger and bigger and bigger, we'd literally raised the bar. We had to, in Top Gear 20 years ago, an individual film might be 7 minutes driving around the Cotswolds in a new hatchback. But now it had to be 15 minutes driving across Botswana. It became harder and harder to lift that, to keep that quality of film up at that level of intensity, all in a sort of magazine-y format. And mostly because the reward for that, you do look closely at what people say and feel and like, and they loved the big specials. It was simply audience demand. They loved them. So we made those rather than try and keep doing something that didn't fit as well. Makes sense, really, doesn't it? If people really like them, make them.
Absolutely, but I'm gonna miss the Conversation Street graphic in particular.
That was the best fun to take. I say a brand, our shtick that we'd been working together by then for 20 years. I mean, ridiculous, a long time anyway, and to then have the chance at reinventing it. We wanted to do a news section. We couldn't call it the news. Danger of being seen as trying to pass off, so we couldn't. But we wanted to have a talky bit. And I remember we said Conversation Street. I don't know why we thought of it. But that process it was incredibly revitalizing for all of us. I mean, not just for us four, but for the whole team. it was really good fun to say, oh, how can we redo this? How can we do this differently? How can we do new stuff? That was really good fun. And again, we were all very lucky to have the chance to do that.
I can't interview you, Richard, without asking briefly about the crashes that you've had.
Yeah, my driving skills.
Yes. Firstly, on Top Gear, and more recently, the Rimac crash in Switzerland.
Did it again.
Oh,
yeah.
On the Grand Tour. Did the last one have an impact in the direction of the Grand Tour in terms of the types of things that you're going to be doing? No?
I mean, neither did the first, really, in the sense that we've always... It's if you're in fast-moving things, there's an element of danger, and there's an element of danger sitting on your sofa, and it's okay, when none of us go, oh good, risk assessments, unless that's your job, in which case enjoy it. But there is a reason, and perhaps we sharpened up after the first one. The second one, I mean, to be honest, it was largely my fault. I went over the line too fast and didn't lift. Thankfully, again, this is down to the health and safety. The thing flew 300 feet and God knows how high and landed on his roof. And I was okay. I busted a leg and some bits and pieces, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And that's because of the car. And we wouldn't have done that. It wouldn't have driven the car if it was dangerous and going to be, it wasn't. It was incredibly safe. It saved my life when I crashed it off a mountain.
Yeah.
Stupid.
How is the knee, by the way?
It's all right. It's got big bits of metal in it. I can't run as often as I'd like to now. I sort of treat myself to a weekly big run, and then I go for a little trot around during the week. But if I run it every day, it will wear out very quickly. It's hanging on, still there, hinges in the middle.
Good. What's next for the Grand Tour? I mean, Elon Musk is obviously beaten you to sending a car in space. What's the country that you've not been to that's got to be on the list for a special in the future?
I mean, I'm not going to name specific countries, but I mean, there's always... Our subject matter is subject to eternal change, particularly so at the moment. There's never been a more exciting time to look at the interface between cars and people and transport and travel because, wow, it's all going on.
Yeah.
So we're not going to run out of stuff to talk about and places to go. We might run out of energy, but we're not going to run out of things and places to talk about.
That's something that has become a bit of a theme over the past few shows is, asking, we've spoken to Ipsos Mori, we've spoken to various different distributors about what sort of demand they're going to be for programming they're going to see over 2021. And travel program is something that's, top of the list, really. It's like, everybody wants to be an armchair traveler at the moment. Once you've been stuck at home for a year, everybody wants to, see those places and plan for where they want to go. So I guess, it's great that that's part of your format.
Escape is a role TV can fulfill very well, always has, and right now it's very welcome. Yeah, I think escaping into an idea as well. I mean, you don't need to only escape from your sofa by looking at a white sandy beach and turquoise waters. You can also escape into concepts and minds and thoughts and ideas. But travel, definitely there is an appetite for because we all want to go somewhere, even if only on the telly. Mind you, it's not particularly easy going anywhere on the telly either at the moment. So that's it's not been easy for the Grand Tour, the clue being in the word tour.
Yes. Tell us about the production process for the Grand Tour. I mean, are you hands-on in development? And what about production? Where does you've been involved in production, as you said, right from the beginning of your career. Where does sort of your involvement in development stop and then sort of production start?
Well, don't forget, I'm in development. It's never going to be broader than the show because we're only developing it only ever is going to make that one show. And therefore, we're developing into that show. And that's a very collaborative process. I mean, I'll not lie, Jeremy is, it can be profoundly irritating in pretty much every way. But my God, the man is a source of ideas, as is the whole team. And so, it is a case of bowling in ideas and tearing them down, building them back up and working them through. And it's quite a slick machine now. In terms of logistics, I'm not going to interfere with that because there's some specialists in there now. They know what they're about. I found it a very brusque reminder setting up Chimp when I'm now working on shows outside of the Grand Tour. And you realise, there's a lot to do, isn't there? It's really busy. It doesn't happen automatically.
No. So let's talk about Chimp. Now, That's your own production business that you run with your wife, Amanda, I believe.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's not particularly hands-on with it, but she'll tell me if something's rubbish. But yeah, Chimp came about because it always lifelong dream, always wanted to, in an ideal world, build a sort of machine that you can potter up to having driven into work in the morning and drop an idea in a slot in the top, and something incredible comes out at the other end. It doesn't always work like that, but I love the business of making content, making programs. And I'm asked quite often, well, why are you doing that? You're a presenter. Well, hang on. Yeah. And therefore, I view myself as just one tool on the rack of tools involved in making content and getting it commissioned, getting it made, cut, distributed, and paid for. Whether you're production manager, camera assistant, production lawyer, or presenter, you're one of the cogs in that big machine. And I've been doing it for 3 decades. So I'm very interested in that process and passionate about it. And I thought, well, if that's something I can leverage out of what success I've been lucky enough to enjoy as a presenter, then that's great news. So I've been focusing on doing that. It's been incredibly challenging. This wasn't the best year to do it as it transpired. A strange experience. I mean, the year before last, end of 2019, there were a lot of us, and we were making a big show for Amazon, a big show for Discovery. I could afford a sizable development team, but then very, very quickly along comes COVID and the general sort of, I'm not shut down, but the sense of, well, wait a minute, if I commission that, you can be a lot of money into the spend on it and then not able to deliver the show. Who's liable for that loss? And unfortunately for Chimp, we hadn't yet been able to build up that vault of IP that we could send out and sweat those assets when we're not in production. So when production shuts down, I'm keeping it going. So I've been very sensible and shrunk it back to the right size, but I've kept development in place. And we are rattling out great ideas. And I think we'll have benefited from it. We'll have leaned out as much as we can. We've stripped back to we are simply generating ideas in absolutely the right shape, targeted, and delivering them in the right form. So, yeah, it's been an incredible journey to get here.
Yeah. And you're working with former Warner Brothers TV and Brave Bison CEO Claire Hungate.
Absolutely, yes.
So you've got a fantastic team in place.
Yeah, we have Erica Dodd who is my director of programs and who's dynamite. When she first joined, it was actually we're in the midst of, so these were big productions going out the door. So we were quite a big team and we were dealing with sizable production company issues. And it all gets complicated sometimes. And she just sat me down and said, Richard, really, it distills down to come up with a great idea, ideally targeted somewhere, take it there, make sure it fits, get it commissioned, make it really, really well, ideally for a bit less than you got paid to make it, and then you're in business. Oh yeah, actually, we can forget that it's there is that element to it, and I really appreciate her reminding me of that sometimes when I get caught up in the other stuff, and you think, well, hang on, no, it is still about the idea of let's get some amazing ideas together and get paid slightly more to make them than it costs us. And then we can afford a big development team to come up with the next one and the next one.
Yeah. And now you don't have to make shows for Amazon, right? You're making shows for Discovery?
Yeah, whoever. I mean, we talk a lot to US networks constantly. Well, I don't want to curse anything, but there's things moving closer with networks over there and here in the UK. No, we're open for business anyway. That's kind of useful. And also what I can contribute to the business. I mean, I'm not a businessman. I'm not a charismatic and talented MD. I'm not much use, really. The most use I can be is, I suppose, a sort of creative director role, but also actually hosting stuff to get us moving. Because I know we can open doors to the odd broadcaster and say, hello, it's me. I really like to make this. And I really want to make it with these guys that I came up with it with. But the aim for Chimp is to be making stuff, obviously, not for me. I brought an old friend, Tori Belleci, into a show we've just delivered to Amazon, Great Escapists. And I just adore the guy, and he's fabulous on screen. He's so warm and relatable, but also his passion for his subject, engineering, building, is incredibly genuine. He started as a builder on Mythbusters. He was making stuff offset and gradually became on screen. He is the real deal. And I'd love to make shows for him. That would be the next phase for me. Ideally, I'd like to go out, maybe on one show a year for Chimp, because it's what I do, but then really have Chimp making stuff with other people fronting it. That's when I know we've succeeded.
Could we see you making shows for the BBC, do you think? Or Netflix?
Yeah, I mean, there are no holdbacks on us. But I'd love to get some stuff away in the UK, not only because obviously as a UK indie, you really need those jobs where you can build up that vault of IP that you can send out to work for you when times are like 2020 was. But also, I think typically the US networks and certainly the SVODs where it is work for hire, but they pay well. And you get to experiment with bigger, bolder ideas. You know, we delivered The Great Escapist. That was not an inexpensive show. And we did that all on our little selves. And it's really important to be able to say, yeah, we can handle a budget. We can handle the sort of infrastructure and the backup, the business structure behind that. And that's really important. So, yeah, we will continue to advance on all fronts. Just as a broadcaster, I'd love to do some stuff in my home country. Again, I'd like to be on terrestrial in the UK and then see Chimp's little logo at the end of it.
So now it's the time in the show where my guests get to choose their TV industry story of the week over the past 7 days. Richard, what's your story of the week?
I'm very interested in Disney. Is it 95 million subscriptions they've now hit, which is significant, but also speaks to that kind of growing wave of SVODs coming at us. And important to whilst that wave happens, find ways of surfing it. No, I think it's really important as an indie to think, right, well, yeah, okay, there's not going to be the advantages of retaining ownership. The rights issues are going to be more complicated, but they've got big budgets and you can make huge projects for them. And I think as well, more of those breakout shows are going to happen, those ones that break out from the confines of that. I think it's also slowly blurring that brief division of viewers, you know, a younger generation for whom the idea of scheduling, I just watch what somebody wants me to watch at a given moment. Why would I do that? I want to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. But I think as that intensifies and grows and they do break out, I think that will always leave space for the schedules because we'll always want those shared broadcasting experiences. I will always want to turn on something sometimes and watch it knowing that a lot of other people I know are going to be watching it simultaneously, because then you get those shared reactions. You might not find it funny, but I know my Auntie Beryl will find it extremely offensive, so I'm going to laugh at it. So I think it's an exciting story more than anything else.
And now it's that time in the show where my guests get to nominate their hero of the week and who or what they're telling to get in the bin. Richard, who's your hero of the week?
Well, the thing is, can I have the same thing for both?
Yeah, why not?
I'm going to say Clubhouse, because it is very exciting, and I got invited, and thought, ooh, and all you hear is how special people are when they're on it. And, oh, this is it. Oh, it's going to be me and Elon, my mate. We're going to be hanging out, just chatting on the
talking Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, it's going to be brilliant. I can't wait. So it was a hero of the week at that point. Oh, this is I've made it. I'm going to be on there with all the other big execs, pitching my shows, selling my business. Here I go. And then I went on. And then this is where it goes the other way a little bit, because basically I swagger into Clubhouse thinking, right, where's Elon and everybody else? And then all of a sudden I am reduced to the scruffy little brummie that I am, just scuffling about all these rooms, hearing people talk. I thought, well, I don't want to go in there. What if I have to say something? And they're all talking about Silicon Valley stuff and Bitcoin and really scary. I'll bail out. I've been in several times since and had a mooch about, and then I realised that when you're in a room, your name's on the list. People can see you're in there. But if God forbid somebody did see, wait a minute, is that little? Why have you been so quiet? I'm terrified of it, so I ran out.
And you have to raise your hand, don't you?
Oh God! And then I ran out again. So I'm doing both with Clubhouse, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Total hero, very exciting. Wow, new type of social media. I think the idea of it being speech rather than imagery or written word, fantastic. That could be revelatory. That could be really freeing for ideas. We'll then get into a freedom of speech argument. But let's assume that people can share ideas on there. Brilliant. But then the actual practicalities of going in and doing it when you've convinced yourself everybody else in the room is basically a T-Rex in a suit.
Yes.
I'm terrified of it.
Yeah.
So it's fulfilling both purposes.
It is pretty weird, I have to say. When I've been in there, I've done exactly the same, gone in and
scurried out again.
Apparently Twitter are going to be launching their competitive product to Clubhouse sometime soon. So, we can do the same thing in Twitter. Richard, thank you so much for coming on TellyCast this week. It's been brilliant talking to you. Best of luck with Chimp Productions. Look forward to seeing you very soon.
Well, thank you, Justin, for having me on. Absolute pleasure. Nice to talk to you. Good luck to you.
My next guest on this week's show is Ollie Davies, Senior Product Manager at Samsung Electronics, who oversees the company's AVOD channel in Europe. Hi, Ollie. How are you?
Hi, Justin. I'm very well. Thank you. Good to be here.
Great to have you on the show. Now, you've worked in the content industry for pretty much all your career before joining Samsung. Talk us through your background.
Yeah, well, not quite, actually. I did have a previous career doing multimedia, but I won't go back that far. Really, the media work started in 2002, just after the boom and then the dot-com bust. I found myself at the BBC, and I joined the Radio Music Interactive team, which was absolutely the right place to arrive at the BBC, because they had, like, weeks before I joined, they had just launched the radio player product to the public, and this was really a kind of pioneering product that really pushed the idea of on-demand media consumption, albeit radio, and streaming of live radio shows for the first time. And so it was a very, very interesting time to join. And of course, that was the precursor to the iPlayer, which took the guts of the product and then launched 5 years later. In 2006, I then joined Fremantle Media, a global super indie. I worked on their big talent show format, so things like The X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, and The Apprentice. And my role there was to develop and extend the fan interaction in between the shows, so between Saturday and Saturday, and actually during the shows as well. So, and again, this was a really interesting point in TV development, because it was kind of the first time that the worlds of TV and social media came together in such spectacular style. In 2020, I joined Samsung, so this was a month before lockdown. So I got to see my colleagues face to face before being cast into the spare bedroom. And I joined the team at Samsung. It was a brand new team looking after the range of services that they are developing and recently have developed, to complement and to sit alongside their range of physical products, so the TVs and mobile devices and things. And Samsung hadn't really done that much in the way of software development or services development before that. And so it felt like walking into a startup within Samsung, with a huge, great big company with massive resources at their disposal. So again, it's a very exciting time. And my role at Samsung is as product lead for TV Plus for the European region. And TV Plus is one of a number of products that the team looked after. We've got Samsung Health, which also ships with new Samsung TVs. And that's a subscription service that allows people to do yoga and workouts in their front room, for example. And you've got other things like Art Store, which is a lovely little product that allows you to display original art on your TV when it's not in use. So we've got a range of really interesting, nice products that come with and form part of the overall sort of Samsung smart TV experience.
AVOD has really seemed to come from almost nowhere over the last 12 months or so in terms of popularity and a general awareness. I know it's not just appeared from nowhere. No, it's been around for a little bit of time. But first of all, can you talk us through the Samsung TV Plus platform? How many users you have, how many channels, what sort of content is featured there?
When I joined Samsung at the beginning of last year, I hardly knew about this new thing. The product was new to me and a revelation, but it kind of made perfect sense in the evolution of these services. So TV Plus as a product, it comes pre-installed on all new Samsung TVs, and it has done since 2016. And it offers a wide range of channels that people can just jump into without any sort of barrier at all. So there are no signups, there's no subscription, there's no registration, there's absolutely no barrier at all. So it really feels like flicking on and watching linear TV. And the great thing about TV Plus is that it's so sort of deeply embedded into the smart TV experience. I'll give you an example. So the channels that are available sit on the same EPG as your regular channels. So you can be watching linear TV, and with your remote, you can channel up and use the channel up, channel down buttons, and you can seamlessly move from your regular TV into the IP delivered channels from TV Plus and not even know. For those users who are perhaps more traditional viewers who maybe think that streaming or apps are not for them, they find themselves often watching TV Plus without even knowing it. But of course, there's a whole other part of TV Plus which offers more app-like features. So there's a whole Discover section that's curated and has recommendations and is works and shows you what's most popular at the moment and all of those things as well. And of course, it has both linear streaming channels as well as video on demand and box sets available at the same time. So it's a really nice product, and it can work in those different ways for the different need states. And it works very closely with things like voice search that's on the TVs, and things like Universal Guide, which brings together content from all of the app partners and media partners that are on Samsung. So it's all very nicely embedded in and just offers a very kind of frictionless way of just tuning in to these channels.
That's really interesting when you say it's a seamless experience, because I think I've been reading much more recently about the gatekeepers of, if you like, or the access to subscription channels, whether it be AVOD or SVOD. So the fact that Samsung TV comes baked in to the infrastructure of your TV, and as you say, you don't need to be chasing around logging in with your remote control, which I always find incredibly difficult to do. But essentially, it's right there. It's on the bottom of your screen. You click on it, and then you've got access to how many channels?
So we're currently in 7 European countries, and we're about to roll out, I think next month, to a further 9. And some territories are much more developed than others. So UK and Germany are the most mature from a TV Plus perspective. In those territories, we've got around about 90 channels in each territory.
And what sort of content are we talking about?
So this is the interesting thing about TV Plus. It's very comfortable having lots of different types of channels and content sitting side by side with each other, and it doesn't feel strange in any way. So I'll give you an example. So we've got some very recognizable existing channel brands on TV Plus. So we've got things like CNN and Euronews and Bloomberg, and these are international channels that people will know and they will recognize as regular TV, if you like, but are not available on Freeview. But on the other hand, we've also got channels that are much more niche, channels that cater for areas that are really underserved by regular TV. So you've got gaming channels, you've got channels dedicated to extreme sports, and we've even got a paranormal channel in the UK, but also channels from some of the new digital native production companies that are really designed to indulge people's passions. So you've got lots of stuff on motoring, cooking, music, and things like natural history as well. But also what's really interesting is some of the channels that we have are named after a single program. So essentially the channel caters for a single program brand. So you've got things like Midsummer Murders. So the Midsummer Murders channel in Spain and it's incredibly popular. And then you've got things like the Teletubbies channel and SpongeBob SquarePants and things like that. So people recognise these brands as program brands, but not necessarily as channel brands. But it doesn't really matter because they all can sit side by side and really work in harmony with each other.
How many hours of content do you need for a program brand to have its own channel?
So it's to do with, I guess, minimum amount of content to launch with. And you really should be looking at a minimum of 80 hours for launch. And then it's a case of, well, how frequently can you refresh that content to keep it fresh and to stop it going stale? And we suggest a refresh rate of around 25% per month. Now, the thing is that doesn't have to be brand new content every month. It can then recycle back after, let's say, 3 months or so. You really shouldn't be launching with, just 40 hours and that's it, because you can't really sustain a channel for more than a few months with that amount of content. Right. Okay. So we're probably talking about 100, 120 hours maybe would be a good entry point for an IP owner that has a really successful and long running and lots of content on a program brand. Okay. Yes. So that sounds fascinating. And I actually know that Barcroft TV have also got a channel on Samsung TV Plus. So it's not just about program brands, but it's also, producers out there. And as you said, digital first producers may also have the opportunity to create their own channels on Samsung TV Plus. Exactly, and the example you give, Barcroft, is a very good one because they're a digital native production company, or it makes no sense for them to develop a linear channel because they would have so much in the way of upfront costs. It would be a really, really high risk move for them, but they've got really good content, really high quality content that generally hasn't appeared on TV, although I know some of it has, that is available through things like YouTube. Samsung TV Plus is a brilliant way for them to get a second window of the audience because they have content that put together with nice presentation, really would feel like a TV channel, and that's the sort of content that really complements somebody's existing Freeview lineup, for example. If we have any producers listening who've got a really strong back catalogue and they're thinking, okay, is it short form content that's edited together in half-hour blocks, or is it long form content? You mentioned Midsummer Murders having channels, or is it both? So it really is both. Another example is Dukin Media, where they produce packaged programs from people sending in pratfalls, essentially. So Fail Army, for example, is their main channel, and those can be literally 10-second clips, edited together into 10-minute segments, for example. We also have channels that have programs that are 3 minutes long or so. It becomes a bit more of a challenge to set up sensible ad breaks, for example, when you've got such short content. Nothing is insurmountable. And actually, short form content, it will be very interesting to see how it fares when TV Plus launches on mobile in Europe, which will be in April. How can IP owners and content creators get their content onto Samsung TV Plus? Is it just a case of them reaching out to you and saying, this is the content we've got, what do you think? Is it a pitching process, or how does it work? Yeah, it really is as simple as that. Just get in touch with your content and your channel ideas, and then we will take a look at it. We have a strategy that we want to move ahead with in terms of what type of content that we want to bring onto the platform. But actually, that differs from territory to territory. So it's probably going to be a bit harder to get content onto UK and Germany than Italy, Spain, and France, for example. But yeah, if we if we like the idea, then absolutely, we will work with the content partner to make it happen. Actually, the mechanics of it is not that difficult. We have a small number of tech integrators that really have everything already set up. So, particularly content owners that have never run a channel before, or who have very little experience of scheduling things. I mean, these companies are on hand. They have their platform set up to handle the whole end-to-end ingestion system and in processing of content, and all of that is right through to delivery to the end user. So it's low risk. There's no upfront costs. The advertising is taken care of with Samsung Ads, although if there are bigger media partners that want to bring their own advertising to the platform, then we can do that as well. So it's really, really flexible and very straightforward.
And when it comes to monetization, is it monetized per view and there's a revenue share between Samsung and the IP owner, or how does that work?
There are two basic models. There's either a revenue share based on the advertising income. So if Samsung sell the airtime, then a revenue share deal is agreed with the content partner. Or if the content partner wants to bring their own advertising with them, then it becomes an inventory share deal. So that effectively the commercial airtime is split between Samsung Ads and the content partner's media agency.
It's obviously an exploding area. 2020, we talked about how much AVOD has grown and become a really important part of the TV marketplace. We've seen Roku, we've seen Viacom CBS, through Pluto, we've seen yourselves, and we've seen Peacock, for example, HBO Max, lots of different media businesses and electronics companies coming into the marketplace. Why is it so popular right now? And how do you see AVOD developing this year and beyond?
I mean, we all know what happened in 2020. We saw a massive explosion of TV viewing across the board. People suddenly can't go out. They want more choice, but they don't really want to pay for it. We know that there's less and less, original TV being made. We know that that's had a positive effect on AVOD as it has with every other sector. But I think there's another reason, and I think that there's, what we've seen at Samsung is that there's been a general shift towards smart TVs becoming the main environment, the gatekeeper, as you mentioned before. So the main environment where people would, maybe discover new content or new services, or just, hop straight into Netflix or whatever they want to use. And of course, that for us has really benefited because TV Plus is such a sort of central part of that. When they buy a new telly, they don't necessarily know that the smart TV environment has matured to the point where it just feels comfortable enough for it to be used, in place of a streaming stick or a set-top box, for example. So I think that has been a huge benefit, and I think it's probably benefited other services as well. So people like, maybe Rakuten and Pluto, who suddenly get more prominence on the launcher bar.
What's your story of the week?
So my story is from The Guardian from the middle of February. BBC faces oblivion despite TV drama Golden Age, says Russell T Davies. Well, that certainly got my attention. I mean, we know Russell T Davies is, an absolute Goliath of the industry. He's a very, very accomplished screenwriter behind, the reboot of Doctor Who and Queer as Folk and lots of other brilliant programs. And when he says that, then yes, it really made me stand up. Now, what his argument is that, UK broadcasters in general, not just the BBC, mainly the BBC, I guess, are really under extreme threat from streaming giants, so Netflix and Disney Plus and all the others, but also from other angles like general underfunding and from hostility, frankly, from the government. And I don't disagree with him. It was very uncomfortable to see what's happening and the kind of the general shift. And what's happened from a personal perspective, what's interesting is, moving from a national UK broadcaster into a global tech giant, it really shifts your perspective on things. You've got suddenly, a global outlook for your products and for your deals and for your audience and everything else, in a way that the national broadcasters just don't have, because they're national by nature. And the minute that national broadcasters are seen outside of the narrow confines of linear TV, then competing with people like Netflix becomes so much harder. They lose prominence because suddenly they're just another app on a launcher bar. And there's so much fragmentation as well. You've got iPlayer, ITV Hub, you've got all of the other players, but you've also got things like BritBox, Preview Play, and UV, and they're all competing against each other, trying to show you essentially the same type of content. Whilst all of these entities are competing against each other, they're never going to win. They're never going to, make the big step that they need to make in order to be a proper competitor. I know this is going to sound very strange to a lot of people, but really what they need to do is to put everything together into a single destination. Now, that's really going to go down badly in lots of different places, but I really, really believe that it's the only way that they are going to be able to compete. Call that destination iPlayer. iPlayer is the brand that everybody knows. Don't call it BritBox. Make iPlayer an open platform where people can bring their own content, their own advertising relationships, their own type of media, including podcasts and radio and everything else, and just give it the biggest international footprint that it possibly can.
Who's your hero of the week?
Well, my hero of the week isn't actually a person. I'm going to nominate the weather. I know that sounds a bit strange, but after a long, dull, cold winter, finally having, double-digit temperatures where you can, emerge from the lockdown, or imagine yourself emerging from the lockdown and, looking at the daffodils and the crocuses and all of that sort of thing. It's just completely changed everything. And it just feels like there's real hope in the air. I live in Stockwell in South London, and I saw, or rather I heard initially, a woodpecker in a tree. And now I've never seen that before. I'd never heard a woodpecker before. And that was just like such a wonderful moment.
Absolutely. The end is in sight, Ollie. We're emerging into the sunlight.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Who or what's going in your bin, Ollie?
So, well, we all know that there's not a lot of new TV around at the moment. So when a new show called Behind Her Eyes came on Netflix, we jumped on it. So we were watching away, and it was great. It started off as a sophisticated psychological thriller, urban, very easy on the eye, and then by the end of episode 8, it had a very strange double twist on it, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I have to say it was a twist too far, and I just want my hours back. The main thing I wanted to say about the show was that it was set in the UK, it had British actors in it, and it was odd because it didn't really feel like a British show. It felt like a sort of odd internationalization of local content, if that makes sense. It just somehow didn't really sit right.
Yeah, I felt the same about Sex Education, actually, when I saw that, and just the Americanization of the school and all the rest of it. But, it's a fantastic series. But I agree with you when it comes to feeling that you've had hours robbed when you've seen a show and you're let down at the end. And our time is so valuable right now. And even though we're probably watching more and more content, as you know, more and more content than we ever have before, when you plump for a series, you go, okay, I'm placing my trust in this show. I've got 6 hours that I'm going to dedicate to it. And when it comes to the end, yeah, it's a bit of the kick in the teeth, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Ollie, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on TellyCast this week. Very good luck with Samsung TV Plus in the future. And if any producers or IP owners want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you at Samsung TV Plus?
o.davies@samsung.com.
All right, fantastic. And we'll put that in the episode description as well, so anybody can get in touch with you very easily.
Thank you very much, Justin.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
So now it's time for another Commissioner's Corner. And this week I'm delighted to welcome Shirley Jones, Entertainment Commissioner for Sky One. Hi Shirley, welcome to the show.
Hello. It's good to be here. And hello everybody listening. I hope everyone is all good.
Yeah, it's great. Well, the sun's out in London and hopefully it is across Europe and all wherever else our listeners are, which is...
Finally.
Yeah, and we're just starting to see maybe a little way out of this whole lockdown and the government's made an announcement yesterday for us. So it's we've got a bit of a spring in our step in many ways.
It's like we've been hibernating all winter and now we're allowed to come out and sort of
exactly
see life again.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Now, Shirley, tell us about your role at Sky and a little bit about Sky One's audience.
I'm an entertainment commissioner. So I used to look after Sky Arts and Sky One, and now I just focus on Sky One Entertainment. So it's non-scripted. So anything that's non-scripted, original, comes through me for new ideas to Sky One. Our customers, we call them customers because we're a pay channel. So we refer to our audience as customers, and they're generally. It's pretty split, men, women. Sometimes people think Sky is a bit more male skewed, but actually it's more or less a 50-50 split, male, female. And across the ages, really, it depends on our shows, what show it is. Some shows that we do have a much younger audience. So, for example, we have a show called League of Their Own. That has quite a young audience, probably majority 16 to 34-year-olds, where we also had a show which we did Dynamo the Magician last Easter. That was a 3-part special. That was a little bit older. So it just depends on the show. We don't have a very, it's not like there's one age range. We commission shows on the merit of the shows and what we feel like our customers would like to see. And so some shows are aimed at different audiences, but generally 50-50 male-female split.
Okay. And you mentioned A League of Your Own, and we'll come and talk a little bit about the original commissions that the channel's made over in recent times. First of all, can you tell us about original content? How much original content do you commission per year in the entertainment team?
Right. Well, you know what? To be honest, it varies from year to year. We have our budget for the year, and when we spent it, we spent it. So it depends really. We only commission 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. They're the two slots that we concentrate on. So very post-watershed, adult orientated content. And it's more, for us, it's more about the scale of those projects and the impact those projects can have, those shows can have, rather than the amount of hours. So, we might have, for example, I mentioned Dynamo. If we do a Dynamo special, that's 3 parts, but they're big, cinematic. They've got scale. They feel like an event. So we might do shows like that, but we might do an 8-part series. It just depends what comes through the door, what's returning, and what we feel we need. So, it's hundreds of hours. I would say normally we commission normally 1 or 2 hours a night, Monday to Friday.
Right. Okay. And is it mostly talent-led, assuming that it is for your role when it comes to entertainment? Is it mainly talent-led formats and shows that you're looking for?
It hasn't always been that way. We've spent, as I said, we're a pay channel, so you want to make sure that customers feel like they're getting value for money. If you're going to pay for content, it's got to be worth it. And we spent a long time trying different formats out, we've tried factual programming, fact-end programming, entertainment shows, and comedy entertainment is sort of where we're at now. But we've tried a bit of everything to see what people want the most, and it sort of ended up that talent-based programming is working for us. Our customers are enjoying it, talent are enjoying it. We work very closely with talent, and certainly for some shows it comes from the talent themselves, where they'll say, I want to do this, and we'll work with them to create a show that works for Sky and works for them. So we have a lot of collaboration with talent, and it's just sort of worked out that recently we've had really great talent on the show, and we're really proud of the shows we've got and the talent that we've currently got in our portfolio. So that's sort of where we're at the moment. It is quite heavily talent based, but it hasn't always been that way, and it's not to say that it will stay this way. It's just this is where we are right now.
You've got a show that you commissioned that's actually coming out the day that TellyCast comes out this week, on Thursday, called Dating No Filter. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So Dating No Filter is an interesting one because we're concentrating on comedy entertainment. I think dating, there's a lot of dating formats around, and I think we'd always thought dating isn't really us. And then Monkey, who are the production company who make the show for us, sent over a taster tape. They'd made a UK taster tape. So Dating No Filter is originally a US format. It goes out on E! Entertainment, it's an NBC format. They'd taken that format and they thought, actually the best way to sell this show is to make sure it's got a British sense of humour. So they did this taster tape and they sent it over to me, and I watched it and it really made me laugh. And it was a case of being one of those shows where if it had come in on paper, and I've said this to them, if it had come in on paper, it would have been a much harder sell. But because it came in as it did, and it was very funny, and it was warm funny, it's a sort of really warm, funny look at the world of dating and the observations we all make, when we're watching people who are out on dates. And so it was a very quick commission, actually. It only got commissioned in December, and it's already going out on air today.
Wow, so that's under 3 months from commission to airing.
Yeah, it's been a matter of weeks. I mean, they shot it in January, and we had Christmas in the middle, so there was they sort of got it turned around within 4 weeks, I think.
Well done to the guys at Monkey then, and obviously, they saw the kernel of a really great idea in the format. Obviously, presumably they acquired the rights and then came to you, and that's great.
It doesn't always work like that.
No, it's quite rare. It's quite rare to hear. But well, listen, fingers crossed. Hope that does well this week.
Yeah, thank you.
What else is particularly working well on Sky One at the moment when it comes to entertainment formats and shows?
What is landing is the comedy entertainment formats, whether that be a panel show or a travel log based show. We've got quite a few new shows in development, and all of them are comedy ends based at the moment. We're very focused on that. That's where we are sort of, pitching our stall, really. We want to continue down that route. We want to continue attracting more talent to the channel, working with new and different talent. And it's working at the moment. I think that we are sort of building a good portfolio of shows that are returning. There's Rob and Ramesh, A League of Their Own, something about movies, Russell Howard. Hopefully dating. These shows are all up and running and going from strength to strength, which is great.
So comedy, entertainment. So you're looking for more of those, essentially. I mean, if you were to put a message out to producers who are thinking of pitching you different ideas at the moment, what is it specifically that you would welcome?
Focusing in on comedy entertainment. So that's really important. It's not just entertainment, it's comedy entertainment. So every show has a sort of warm tone. Sky is a channel where tonally we're warm. We're never nasty. People might sort of joke with each other and make jokes at each other's expense, but it's all done in good humor, and that's sort of the root of it, really. And if you look at all the shows across Sky One entertainment, they've all got that same tone. And it's about kind of, sitting down and just joining us and joining our talent for an evening and just having a laugh and having a bit of escapism and having some fun. It's not about kind of, you've got to be told a million format points and all of this. It's just about good entertainment. So that's sort of, we want more of that. We've got quite a lot of panel shows at the moment. We've got movies, we've got Lee, we've got another one coming up which we're shooting later, sort of later this year in the summer, hopefully. So we're okay, I think, for panel shows, unless it was something really different. And I think travel logs were pretty well covered for as well. Again, we've got a couple more in development. And then obviously League of the Road Trip, Robin Romesh is a kind of travel log of sorts. So it's about what are we missing, So the dating show is a good example of something that we thought it wasn't an area we wanted to go down, and a route we wanted to go down, but there it is, and it's on air on Thursday. So, it come and surprise us, but whatever it is, it still needs to have its roots in comedy entertainment. So that's the first thing. And then there's a slight other element to this in which terms of what we're looking for. Comedy entertainment is the big one. That's the sort of big series. That's what goes across the year. Then we have what we sort of refer to as event TV. And they are the shows that may be 3 parts or one-offs. And they just pepper once or twice, 3 times maybe in a year as a little treat for our customers. So a good example of that would be the Ant Middleton show. We've got a show called Ant Middleton Straight Talking. So Ant Middleton, who's known for SAS, Who Dares Wins, he basically takes a celebrity and they just go off the beaten track and they just have a really good one-to-one chat. And the recent one we did with Rebel Wilson did really well. Yeah, did really well for us. The previous one was with Liam Payne, but they're big guests. They're a sort of treat when they come along. So we don't do lots of them because it's about the caliber and the quality of those shows, and getting the right person for those shows. Dynamo Beyond Belief was a 3-part event special that went out last Easter. Again, that was a treat around Easter for us. So there is those shows, but again, they tend to be with really big talent. They either have to have a sort of skills, like Dynamo's got a very particular skill set. So the show was based around his skill set. So a skill, somebody who's got an amazing skill or huge talent, or it could be an event that's already happening that we become part of, So
Okay.
For a few years back, we did Game for Grenfell, which was the charity football match in aid of, the Grenfell fire victims. So we did that. So those sort of specials, they have to be worth doing. They have to have something about them that makes you go, you know what, let's just do a one-off for this, or it's a treat. Here's something that feels we need to do it.
You mentioned like the Dynamo special was around Easter, and
Yeah.
I don't know whether the Ant Middleton shows are pitched around a particular time of the year, but should producers think about, pitching you ideas for particular dates in the diary, that you're looking for those sort of shows? Or is it just a case of they should pitch you the idea and with the talent and you can think of when that's going to go in the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, we never normally sort of schedule for a specific time of year. Dynamo just happened to fall at Easter because we'd finished filming and we were editing it, and Easter was coming up, and it felt like a good fit. But we do some programming around Christmas. So I've got a very specific Christmas-based idea coming in this week. So that would only go out at Christmas. So it just depends. I mean, I think if you've got something that feels very time-specific, then that's absolutely fine. But otherwise, there's no need really, because if we felt like it needed to go out at a certain time of year, we just hold on to it and put it out then. So yeah, any time is good to send stuff.
So before we move on to how producers should consider pitching to you, but coming back to you said dating was an area that you hadn't really thought about, and this idea with a comedy entertainment format seemed right to you. What other areas are you not currently covering that you might consider an idea in? Cooking, for example, would you be looking for?
I think with dating, it sort of tipped towards the comedy more, and that's why it sort of works for us. Generally, no, we wouldn't. We've looked at cooking in the past. We had a Harry Hill cooking format, and I think it just doesn't feel 9 or 10 p.m. enough. Cooking sort of feels like it doesn't sort of sit great for us in that post Watershed slot.
Right.
Generally,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to sort of say, what area we might be interested in. It just depends on, who's involved and the spin on it, really. That makes it feel like a Sky show, makes it feel like something you can't get anywhere else. Because I think that's the other important thing about Sky shows is that, because people pay for our content, it has to be worth their money. Nobody wants to pay for something you can get free down the road. So you want to make sure that you're giving something that feels like you can only get it on Sky. That there isn't a direct comparison show on another channel, on a terrestrial channel. So I think that's an important thing to sort of consider as well.
Okay. Well, before I move on from genres, I've got one more question. There's been a bit of a resurgence in these back to basics, crafty type formats and crafty type shows, whether it be wood whittling or whether it be pottery throwdowns and, baking we've obviously talked about. And that's something that we've spoken to a few futurologists about, what consumers are going to be looking for this year. Does that figure in your thinking? If somebody came to you with a really great craft show idea, whatever that might be, with some really great talent attached to it, would that pique your interest?
To be honest, no.
Okay.
You know what? Right. We have been offered, even shows that are on other channels at the moment, we've been offered them in the past, and they've just not been for us. They just feel like, other channels do that type of show really well. And I think, if it's done really well elsewhere, would we need to do a version of it? I don't know if we need to. We don't need to be derivative. I think we need to kind of keep being innovative. I think in terms of craft, Sky Arts is a more likely home for that kind of a show because they do portrait artist, landscape artist, master of photography. They cover that kind of area. If it's going down the Sky Arts route, it needs to be about the craft and the artistic element of it, as opposed to the contributor element, I guess. It would have to feel much more arts based to work on Sky Arts, but that would tend to be the more likely home than Sky One.
Got it. And while we're on that subject as well, what else? You said you're okay for panel shows. What else are you definitely not looking for? What would you say to producers? Don't pitch me any of these types of ideas.
Okay, you ready for the long list? You know what? Well, I think at the moment we are very focused on what we are looking for. We've got some good returning shows, so it's not like we're sort of missing huge amounts of content. So I think it's about, we're sort of looking for those ideas that really stand out to us. So I think the list would be no documentary. We have a documentary channel now, so no documentary, no factual programming, no fact-end programming, no quizzes, no sort of big Saturday night style entertainment formats. I think they are well serviced and done well, elsewhere on BBC and ITV, etc. Yeah, so I think it's, we are looking at entertainment, but with a very definite comedy twist. That is where we're at.
Okay. And if we looked at Dating No Filter, A League of Their Own, and Robin Ramesh versus, that would give us a really good sort of feeling for the tone and the type of show. Absolutely.
I think that's, if you're interested in pitching to Sky, it's really helpful to watch those shows and just see how they're put together and how it becomes about the relationships in those shows almost. And even with Dating, all the talent that we booked for Dating, we said to them, who do you want to do this with? Because it's pairs of comedians or celebrities, and they watch blind dates and observe them and comment on them. And we said to one of each pairing, who do you want to do this with? And they chose their pairings. So those people have genuine, authentic relationships. They get on, they have a laugh together, and so again that brings that Sky tone into it. A League of Their Own is they all get on and they're all friends outside of the show. Rob and Romesh are really good mates. So it's about a camaraderie really, and a friendship, and about having a laugh with your mates really. And that is, if you watch all of those shows, that's what should come across in all of those.
Okay, so get a great format,
yeah,
turn it for a UK audience, and get two mates, or get some talent who are really good mates, and that sounds like it's a perfect formula.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's about authenticity in a lot of ways with relationships and talent. We work hard to make sure that any talent appearing on Sky feel that they have their own voice, that they're not just told, oh, do this or do that. We had a show, and we're currently doing more with Jamie Redknapp and Harry Redknapp that we did during lockdown, and their friend Tom Davis. And obviously that's a brilliant relationship. It's father and son and their best mate. So, that's again is a show that was built on that relationships. And I think it gives you a good head start with any new show, is that you're not having to learn to work with each other, or how to get on, or to try and have chemistry. You're not forcing anything. It's just already naturally there from the outset.
And families as well. So potentially talent, the talent families might be, as you say, that sounds like it could be an interesting area for producers to explore. In terms of the perfect pitch, I mean, you talked earlier on about Monkey, who had adapted that format and put a taster tape together.
Yeah.
How should producers pitch to you? What's the perfect pitch?
In telling you the perfect pitch, it's probably easy to tell you the one that's not so perfect.
Yeah.
I was in production for a very long time, for 20 years or so. So I've been there and done that side of it as well. So I understand how hard development can be. I don't need you to waste time doing great big fancy documents full of pictures and reams of text. I don't need that. Ultimately, the first few lines of that document will tell me everything I need to know, and I'll know whether I think there's potential or not. So for me, I don't need great big documents. It's just about a couple of lines, a paragraph, to tell me what the idea is. And from that, I'll either think, okay, that's quite interesting, I want to know more, or you know what, that's not going to be for us. I've worked on the channel now for a long time, so I understand what it is we're looking for. And so I'm not going to miss something that we should be doing, but I just don't want people to waste their time, doing all of this amount of work that you do get a lot of great, really well formed documents with, and every episode's worked out and stuff. But ultimately, if the top line's not right, the top line's not right. So I think, for me, I'm happy to read paragraphs, top lines, that's all it needs. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. A few things not to do, and this does happen. If you're pitching it to lots of channels, don't leave the other channel's name in it. That's always quite helpful. That happens more times than it doesn't.
Oh no, that's
terrible.
That's something that journalists get a lot, as well. Actually, if they're being pitched an idea by a PR, and how would you fancy this idea for the Times this weekend or whatever?
Yeah.
It's the cardinal sin.
It's a sin. It's a basic, because you know what? If I read that and you've left another channel's name in it, it makes me just think that you've missed attention to detail, and so therefore it makes me think, you know what? If you're going to make a show for us, am I going to trust your attention to detail? So it's something as small as that can have an effect. So just be really wary about doing that. And just, don't send in, which also happens a lot, where, I appreciate it's difficult, everybody's trying to get shows away, but don't send me 20 ideas, most of which aren't suitable, because again, it's about, I feel then that you've just gone, oh, just send them off to Sky. And, we want to know that you've looked at our content and you've thought about what might be right for us, and you've thought about how tonally it might work for us and it'll fit, that is so much more appealing to us than just getting 20 ideas in that I've got to sort of work through and look at every single one and think, well, they're so far off the mark, because then it becomes frustrating and it's a waste of your time and it's a waste of my time. So that's not ideal.
Well, there's not that many commissioning channels in the UK, are there? So there's not really much of an excuse for that to not tailor your pitch.
But I think that, there is a tendency where, a development person or a development team have a lot of ideas, and then it's like, they send them all out, and it's like that, that's not going to necessarily land you a commission. It's just, you're better to go, what, we've got 20 ideas, but this idea, if we look at what Sky do and we look at the tone of Sky, if we do this with this idea, this is the one idea to send them, and so really be focused in what you send to us, because, we will take more notice if you've really thought about our channel in sending us something.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. So it's quality, not quantity.
Yeah. Oh, and the other final thing I'm going to say, which again is a thing that happens a lot, is don't attach a celebrity to a show as a given if you haven't asked them. Don't send me a show saying, right, this show with, I don't know, Jack Whitehall. Jack Whitehall's going to do this show this week. And you go, okay, if you ask Jack Whitehall, no. Because, you're better to do the show. If you haven't got talent attached, just tell us what the show is and then put suggested hosts. We understand that. We get that. But, we don't want to keep asking the question, has that person been spoken to? Have you asked that person? And then the answer's no, because then it's like, okay, all right. So, just put them as a if you haven't got a host, put suggested hosts and put your ideas there.
Right. Okay. Don't overclaim. I think
don't overclaim exactly. Don't overclaim and don't oversell. You're better just, we will read an idea and we will look for potential. You don't have to, an idea doesn't have to come to us fully formed and, it's ready to go, as soon as we're ready. Lots of ideas come in as just a single idea that we then develop up, and we're really collaborative at Sky. We work really hard with our producers to get the shows to feel like Sky shows, because we appreciate, tone is a hard thing to sort of voice in a way. It's a sort of thing you just get a feel for. And so we work really hard, we're really collaborative, and we'll work with you to develop up shows. So it doesn't have to come in fully formed. It can just be a really good idea. And if there's something in it, we're not going to just let it go without investigating it.
No, you'll Sky it up.
We will Sky it up.
Yeah, okay. And final question, Shirley, how should producers get in touch with you?
So the best thing to do is email Shirley, SHIRLEY, .jones@sky.uk. And the best thing to do is just email and send me just, a short paragraph, a few lines on your idea. If you've got a document you've already done, fine, that's totally fine. You don't need to make taster tapes for everything. If you've got an idea that feels like actually is hard to sell, but we know that it could be brilliant. So like the dating show one, that was worth them making a tape, because it brought that idea alive. But it just, so it just depends on the idea and your resources. We're not expecting tapes. Not everybody has the ability or the finances to make taster tapes. We appreciate that. So yeah, the best thing to do is drop me an email. If there's something we're interested in, we'll be in touch and then we'll have a meeting and go from there.
Well, that's been really useful, Shirley. Thank you. I could hear earlier on the scribbling of, show ideas that were being crossed out, but hopefully also the scribbling of great ideas that they're going to bring to you. So Thank you so much for coming on the show, Shirley. And good luck with everything. Good luck with Dating No Filter.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Well, we've reached the end of another week's show. Thanks as always for listening. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to TellyCast and share it with friends and colleagues. And a quick reminder to sign up for our newsletter, TellyCast Plus,
It's packed with interesting TV industry stories of the week that you might have missed, an opinion including the secret producer, our intrepid anonymous exec, reporting from the front line of TV production. It's all completely free. Just visit our website to sign up at telecast-podcast.com. And you can follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter and YouTube. TellyCast was edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in Lockdown 3 in London. So, until next Thursday, as always, stay safe.
This week's show is sponsored by Insight TV, who passionately create and share content for the experienced generation. Channel provider, content producer, distributor and format seller, Insight TV delivers real-world stories about the adventures, cultural trends and social causes that resonate with today's millennial and Gen Z audiences. Based upon and inspired by social media trends and influencers, Insight TV operates and distributes a flagship lifestyle channel in vivid 4K UHD HDR quality to 315 million homes in 46 countries via linear cable platforms, digital smart TVs, OTT services and via watchinsight.tv. It also distributes a mobile-first short-form channel in Short, action sports channel in Trouble, science and tech channel in Wonder and a nature and wildlife channel in Wild, a co-venture with Off the Fence, to fast channels and mobile services around the world. Insight TV partners with global brands and broadcasters such as Red Bull Media House, G2 Esports, Vice Media and BT Sports to create factual series like Epic Exploring, I Am Invincible and Ultimate Goal. To find out how to do great things together with Insight TV, visit insight.tv or get in touch with the team at marketing@insight.tv.